All right, guys, in the last video, we added some terrain and some obstacles and some physics so that we can interact with those with our player. This time, I think it's about time we started adding some UI elements to our game so that we can see what's going on. Now, UI means user interface. And so what that means is that when you're playing a game, if we go over to the game view, we're seeing through the eyes of the character right now, and we can see the game world. If I grab the player and rotate us towards the that building that we built. So there's our building, right? It's in the game world. That's a thing that we can see over there. But there should be some stuff on our screen that we can see that's not part of the game world. So we might have a meter across the top here that has our health level, right? And when we're completely healthy, it'll be full with red all the way across. When we get hurt, then it will be the same size, but the red will start to drain from it, and it'll show us kind of in a percentage sort of a way how much life we have left. And we might have another one that's a magic meter over here. So those UI things that are part of the screen, but they're not part of the game world, we need to start having those so that it helps the player play the game. It helps the player understand that they're healthy or that they need to be dodging the attacks of their enemy more effectively if they're going to win. It's all these things that give the player the clues that he needs to understand if he's doing well, if he's not doing well, and what he needs to do. So in order to add UI elements, I'm looking at the game screen here, but we're going to go back and forth between the game and the scene view a lot right here because the way that Unity does UI is a little bit goofy. It feels goofy to me. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to right-click here in the hierarchy, and we're going to add a UI canvas. That's way here at the bottom. Let me get it on screen for you guys. So we're going to add a UI canvas. There it is, close to the bottom. And for some reason, it's added itself to the directional light. I don't need it to be at the directional light. Let's pull it off of there. Notice we got two objects here. We got an event system, and it's got the event system, and it's got some standalone input module. It's got some stuff. So right now, you don't need to know anything about the event system, except that the canvas doesn't work without it. So yeah, you want an event system. But we're just going to deal with the canvas. So the canvas is the object, is the parent game object for everything that's going to be UI. Think of it like if you're going to paint on a canvas, like you're a painter and you're going to paint the Mona Lisa, right? You paint it on a canvas. That's what the paint goes onto. So the canvas is a flat thing. An actual piece of canvas is not see-through, but think of it like it's a see-through thing that sits on our screen. It's actually the glass of your computer screen, sort of. Think of it like that. And then we are going to add to it anything that we like to see. So what we're going to do right now is let's look and see where the canvas is, because we're looking at the scene view. It shows everything in here, but I don't see a canvas. I don't know how to work on this thing. I've got it selected over here. If we double click on it, then it's going to focus on it, and we can actually, like right now, if I click on the building, double click on it, it highlights it and shows it here. If I double click on my player, highlights him, and we zoom in so that we can see him. If I highlight the canvas, here we go. I'm going to double click on it. Ready? Yeah. It zoomed out. There's our entire world is that tiny little speck down there. And the canvas is this giant thing that sticks up into the sky. So that's what I meant by, it seems weird to me that the way that Unity handles this, because the canvas has to be part of our game level. We have to be able to see it. It has to be in there so that it can interact with what we're doing. But we don't want it to be in the level with the character, right? It's not supposed to be part of the game world, but it has to be here somewhere. So this is the way that Unity has decided to solve this, and I think it's weird, but I'm used to it, and you'll get used to it too. Now, so we're looking at the scene view, and one of the most important things that is going to help you work on your canvas right now is at the top of the scene tab, we've got this little 2D button right here. If you just click the 2D button, that's going to pretend for a second that you're looking at a side-scroller Mario. It's going to put your your scene camera here right off to the side so that you can see the shape of the canvas. Now, this outline is exactly the same shape as what our game view is right now. So right now, notice that this is set to free aspect, it says at the top. That's going to be important in a second. If I was to take this game view, I'm just going to grab the seam in between my hierarchy and my game tab right here, and I'm going to squish it so it's kind of almost square shaped. Now when I go back to the scene view, my canvas has changed shape because this shape, like I can grab the edge of this and try and pull on it. It doesn't let me resize it. In the same way that if you're looking at your cell phone, you can't change the shape of your screen. It's a piece of glass built into the phone. You can't grab it and stretch the edges. So right now, because this isn't an actual like piece of hardware that we're looking at, this is just the little tab in my Unity editor, I can actually change the shape of it, but we don't really want that. So instead of free aspect, we're going to change the aspect ratio, and I'm going to say we're going to go to a 16:9 aspect ratio. This is the same the aspect ratio. Before I explain why we're going to 16:9, aspect ratio means how long is the up and down side of your screen compared to how long is the from top across the top, how wide is the width of your screen, right? So a 1-to-1 ratio would mean that we've got a square, right? It's exactly the same height as it is width. Now, if you look at your TV at home or at your cell phone screen or something like that, the 1-to-1 is not the right proportion. Almost everything is actually 16:9. That's what your 1080p HD TV, your 4K TV, most cell phones are 16:9. You're going to have other stuff like an iPad, I believe, is 4-to-3 ratio. But right now, we're not going to go too deep into this. Just know that if you want your game to look right, you're going to want to have it not change where everything is if you change where your windows are, because right now, if you squish your windows, it changes the shape of your canvas, and everything that you've put in the right place is going to get moved, and we don't want that. So going over to the game scene, and instead of free aspect, I'm going to pick 16:9. Notice that I've got little black bars on the side. If I change this, those little black bars are making it so that it's not showing a wider shape than our 16:9 canvas will allow for. So now we've got the canvas exactly right. There's one other thing that is going to be a pain for us if we don't handle it ahead of time, and that is the scalar script over here. So check this out. Your cell phone is not, in fact, the same size of a screen as a 4K television, right? So if you put something on the screen, like right now, if this was the face of my iPhone or something, then maybe the height, the actual, if I was to put a ruler on my cell phone screen and measure how far it is from the top corner of this wall to the bottom corner of this wall, it might be something like 1 inch, right? Now, if I project this up onto my TV is much bigger than my cell phone, so it's not going to be 1 inch anymore. But if we look over here, I've got this canvas selected, and if we look in the inspector, we have the very first thing, or we have this component called the scalar script, right? And the first thing is the UI scale mode. So right now, it's using a constant pixel size, which means that this is a little bit inaccurate, but it gives you the idea. It means that if this wall, the way it's displayed on here, and we're not talking about things in the game world, if I have a UI element, like if I have my health bar up here and it's 2 inches long on my cell phone screen, then if I try to play the same game up on my big HD TV, then the health bar is still going to be 2 inches long. It's going to be exactly the same size on both devices. Now that's not right. If it goes halfway across the top of the screen on my cell phone, it should go halfway across the screen on my TV as well. So we need to not keep the constant pixel size. We don't want things to be the same actual size. We want them to scale with the screen size. So if the screen gets bigger, they get bigger with the screen, right? So the canvas scalar script, We want it to scale with the screen size. And the reference resolution that we're using here, I'm going to use 1080p. So this is just to give an idea. This is your, it has to have an idea. You know what? It doesn't even matter. We've told it to scale with the screen size, and that's good enough. Things will scale the way that we put them. If you want to start getting into these other things, for advanced work in Unity, you'll need to figure some of this out. But for what we're doing here, I think it's going to be fine. Okay, so we have a canvas. There it is. I'm in the scene tab so I can see it. I'm in 2D mode, so I'm perfectly off to the side. Now, what we want to do is make a health bar. The easiest way to do this, I'm going to create something called a slider. Now, what this actually is going to be is we're creating something like this. Like if I go back over to my Canvas scaler script that I could still see here, it's got this thing that says match, and we can slide this back and forth between width and height. So this is what we're actually creating. This is sort of your poor man's quick and dirty version of how to make a meter that can actually have a colored section that will move. We're going to make one of these, and we're going to adjust it so that it does what we want. So I want this thing childed to the canvas. So I'm going to select the canvas and right click, and then we're going to make it, except that I want to show you something neat. So I'm going to not select the canvas. I've clicked in the empty space down here, so none of my game objects are selected. Now I'm going to click in the empty space. So when I create this thing, I'm going to go to UI, and I'm going to do it from the create menu just so it stays on screen. UI slider, where is it? Slider. When I pick this, it should not have a parent object, except that sliders are always part of the user interface. This can't exist in your game unless it's part of the canvas. I could pull it off of there now and put it down here, and it's not childed to the canvas, but it doesn't function. It doesn't work like that anymore. So you definitely have to have this as part of the canvas. And if you create one, Unity knows it has to be part of the canvas, so it automatically childs it to the canvas. Okay, I'm going to click on the slider, and we're going to slide in and kind of see what this is. Okay, so what this is we've got this little ball that is the handle for it. And if we look over, I've got slider selected, and I'm going to go over to the inspector. We've got this slider script. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of that, and there's this part called value. If I grab the little handle here and slide it back and forth, you can see that, well, you can see it's giving us warnings. That's kind of weird. But if we slide the thing all the way to nothing, then it's going to be there. And if we slide it all the way to the top, it's going to be at the other end. And that's kind of what we want. So perfect. If we have a health bar, we don't want a ball on it that we can actually grab and move. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go over to the slider here, and I'm going to expand all the little child objects here. So I'm going to go to the handle, which is the big ball, and I'm going to deactivate it. We don't need it to be gone. We just need it to not be in our way. So that's that. The other thing that's going to make this really perfect at the moment is that we're going to go to the fill. The fill area is sort of the lighter gray section here. That's where it's going to be colored. And if we go to the fill, that just is the actual color that we have. So I've selected the fill game object, and I'm going to go over here in the image script for the fill object. I'm just going to click on its color. And since this is my health bar, my instinct says that that should be red. So pick a red color, and we're good. So again, if I grab the slider and go down, scroll down to the value, I can see as we change that, it's going to go all the way to the top, or it's going to go all the way to the bottom, except that it doesn't actually, like, we might be able to get away with this as a minimum, but we certainly cannot get away with that as the maximum. It looks like you're not all the way full. So what we need to do is change the size of the fill area. Keep in mind that all the little things here are just a whole bunch of little shapes, game objects. Like this fill area is kind of capsule shaped, right? Except that it's been sort of lengthened. So what I've done is I've gone up here to my rectangle tool, right? That's this one, the rect tool, because this thing is considered to be sort of a rectangle shape. So I've selected the fill area and I can see its edge right here. What I want to do is grab that edge. I don't want to grab the corner because I don't want to like make it taller by accident. I'm just going to grab the right side and I'm going to extend that until it covers the actual background that was back there. So now if I go back to the slider object and scroll down and move its value, we can actually have the thing fill all the way up to the top. So that's good. Now we have our game object. I'm just going to make sure I've got the slider selected. I'm going to zoom back out a little bit. And now I'm going to go to my move tool and I'm going to kind of position this thing where I want it. I want it in maybe the top corner like that. But I also would like it to be a little bigger. So I'm going to grab the scale tool and let's scale it a little, make it a little longer and just a hint taller. I'd like it to be kind of thicker. Okay. Now I'm going to have to move it again, but I think that that is going to look okay. So right now, if this is going to be our screen, we're going to have that little bar across the top. But we can't see what's actually going on because we're way up in outer space, and this little goofy dot right here is the entire world that we've created. So let's go to the Game tab, where we can actually see the world, and we can see the canvas kind of in front of it. So having my, my health bar up there actually looks kind of all right. I like how that is. That's fine. And again, if I go to the slider object down here at the bottom, I can slide this back and forth and see what it will look like as my life depletes. I'm okay with this. This works. Now, what we need to do is make sure that we can get to this in code and actually have, we already have, if we go over to our code, we've got in our player stats, we have this current health variable, right? Current health. And we've already built in a thing here so that if we press the B key, Tyrannosaur was going to bite us and it was going to take 10 off of our current health. And right now we're just doing a debug.log to show us what our health actually is. So let's come back over here, hit play. And when I hit the B key, it says we're down to 90, down to 80, down to 70, but the meter's not changing. Okay, so we need to have something in our code that takes this number from our current health variable and manipulates this bar at the same time. Okay, so what we need to do is over here in our code, we're going to create yet another kind of eccentric variable to hold on to the thing. So the normal libraries that we have up here, system.collections, collections.generic, and the Unity engine libraries do not have the code to contain things from the canvas. For that, like the slider, that's defined in a different library. So we need to add that library to what we're doing here. So we're going to go up to the top, and right where it says using all these things, we're going to add another line underneath that, and we're going to say using Unity engine dot UI, semicolon. That's the library that has the definitions for what a slider is. Now, we can come down here and add a public, because we want to be able to drag our slider object into this variable. Public, capital slider. This is not a normal game object, and I'll explain in a moment why we're not using a game object, even though it's a game object that we're going to grab. So it's a public slider, and I'm going to call it health bar. That should be fine, semicolon. Okay. I'm going to save that, go back over to Unity, and if I pick my player, Catch up, Unity. Grab my player. Now, if I look at the player stats script over here, I have my player shield with its game object in it, and I have my health bar with nothing in it yet, none, and it takes a slider. Remember when we had the empty player shield, it said it takes a game object. Okay, so what this is that the variable we just created is not going to hold this slider game object. What it's going to hold is this component from it, the slider script that has all these little variables in it, like the value, right? The value is a variable from the slider script, and we need to get to that value so that we can, during the game, turn our health up and down. So the variable will hold this, and we can't actually take this slider from the inspector and drop it into our variable. But if we go back to the player and we drop the entire game object into this field, it's going to understand that we're not trying to give it the game object. We're trying to give it the component that's part of that game object. So I'm just going to grab the entire slider. You know what? I'm going to name this thing first. It's called slider. Let's name it health bar. Health bar. Okay. Now I'm going to take my health bar game object, and I'm going to put it into the slider variable, health bar variable, and it's going to say that it's using the slider from the health bar game object. Notice the game object is represented by this cube, but that little thing right there, that's a different thing. That's showing us that it's using a script. It's using the slider. Okay, so now we have the reference for this in our code. Let's go back. When the we don't want a particular event to be updating our health bar. I mean, we could just, like, every time we take damage, we could say, okay, we took damage, so update the health bar, right? But we might have an awful lot of things doing that. So maybe the best thing that we can do is actually just in the update function, we'll just add some space at the top, and we'll put not inside of an if statement. We'll just say every time that the update function runs, update the health bar. So we have our variable health bar, right? And we're going to not get a function off the health bar like we did before. Like before, we found our game object and we found a function that was part of it, set active, and we gave it false. This time we're not going to a function. We're just grabbing a variable off of it. So it's health bar dot. And let's look over here and see. When we look at our health bar, the thing that we want, we're in the slider, right? The slider is actually what's held in the variable, and it's the value variable that we want to update. So health bar dot value, right? It already knows that there's a thing called value. Notice I didn't capitalize it. Over here in Unity, value is capitalized, but we know that Unity does that to it. So it's lowercase value, right? So as I start to type value, Visual Studio already is looking at the slider script, and it sees that there's a variable called value, and it's like, did you mean this value thing? So yes, we want value. Healthbar.value is a variable, and all we need to do is assign a value to it. So we're just going to say equals, well, we're going to give it our current health, right? Current health. Easy. Now the trick is current health can be anything all the way up to 100, right? Our max health is 100, and at the beginning of the game, we give 100 to be the number that's in here. Now, if we go back over to Unity, right now, the value can go from 0 to 1. Its maximum is 1. And that is because right above it, we have a minimum value and a maximum value, right? So all we have to do to make this go from 0 to 100 is change the maximum value to 100. Now it goes from 0 to 100 and acts exactly the same way. So that's pretty much all that we need to have there. If this has worked, we'll save this. Switch back to Unity. Catch up Unity. This time when we hit play. Okay. I'm going to hit the B key to simulate that we're being bit by a Tyrannosaur or whatever. And you can see we've gone down to 90 and our health bar has been reduced. B again. Yeah, it's showing us that the numbers are depleting, and it's showing us that our bar is being reduced. Now we have some problems. Our health is able to go into negatives. That's something that we're going to definitely want to take care of. But right now, I kind of am not worried about it. And that's because we still have a lot of things to build in the game as far as we're gonna create fireballs. Those fireballs have to be able to do damage. There's going to be other opportunities for us to put into code something that is supposed to happen if our health hits 0. We don't want it to just not be able to go down anymore, be below 0 into the negatives. We also want it to like stop the game, make somebody win, you know, those kinds of things. So there's a lot more involved with the amount of life going into negatives. So for right now, the main thing is we have a functioning health bar that is going to reflect what the actual number is that our code has for our life amount. Let's add a mana bar. This is going to be pretty easy. We're going to do the exact same thing that we did here. I'm going to take my health bar and duplicate it. Duplicate. Okay, so now there's 2 of them. I'm going to rename the second one so that instead of health bar, it's going to be called mana bar. Okay, let's look at it in the scene view. There it is. I'm going to move it down underneath the first one, and then let's look at its child objects, and we'll change the fill color from red to, I don't know, mana feels like it should be blue or something. So there's a blue. Make it a nice pure blue. Okay, and that's what it looks like in the game now, as we have those 2. Yours don't have to be in the top corner. You could have the health over here and the mana over here. You could have them at the bottom stacked. You could have them go up the sides if you rotate them in their transform, right? So you could do kind of a lot of different stuff. But I'm fine with them sitting there like that now. Okay, so I have a mana bar, and I need to hook it up to my code in exactly the same way that I hooked up the health bar, which means I need a new variable, another public capital slider, and I'm going to call it manabar. Let's save that and go populate our player's script. Here we go, none slider for the mana bar. So we're just going to grab the mana bar and put the reference in there so it knows which thing we're talking about. Back to the code. All we did in the update function is every frame it says health bar.value is going to be equal to current health. Well, now we need to have mana bar.value is going to be equal to, remember what, where do we keep the number for what our actual mana amount is? Anyone remember? It's this strength stamina mana dot z, the third number from the vector 3 strength stamina mana. So I'm just gonna, rather than typing it, I'm just gonna copy that. Mana bar value is equal to strength stamina mana dot z and a semicolon on the end, and we're good. Save. Go back to Unity. So when I put my shields up, that depletes the mana. So, okay, here the game is active. I hit B for bit by a Tyrannosaur, and our life depletes. When I turn the shields on, I press the number 1 key, and it has started depleting our mana. All of that is reflected with debug.log messages down here, and we can see that it's depleting up there as well. So that's pretty cool. Everything works. Okay. I'm going to go back to Visual Studio. I can see in the health bar that that my life is depleting when I hit the B key, and it takes 10 life away from me. So I actually don't need this debug.log message anymore. It doesn't hurt me to have it there, but it's, I don't know, I don't need messages that I don't need to be showing up while I'm playing. So I'm going to delete that. Actually, I'm not going to delete that in case I want it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this thing into a comment. meaning that the computer will not see it as code anymore. It's going to be just there for me in case I want it, or in case I need to make notes for myself, right? So I'm going to just put 2 slashes at the beginning of the line, and that means that this is no longer actual code. It's not going to show me debug.log messages anymore when I press the B key. And in here, I'm going to do the same thing. Debug.log, I don't need that one. I might want it later to check. I don't know. So you could delete it, but I'm just going to comment them out so that they're still there if I want to go and turn them back on. I just have to delete the 2 slashes and not write my line of code again. Save it. Guys, we've made a UI canvas, and we've got health and mana bars that work. Actually, yeah, so we did check those. Excellent. Good job, guys. That is all for this video.